and welcome. We're back as a crew again. After all these weeks of being separated, I've missed you all. But well, the joys of getting married, isn't it? But we're here. We're ready. I have to put it out. Please share this. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And this is a trigger warning for anyone that could be triggered by this. We have got Nick Ronald. How are you?
Yes, I'm good. Good to be here. And yes, the topic tonight's one close to my heart. So yeah, it's good to be.
Absolutely. We've got the comeback coach that's probably experienced this himself on both ends of the spectrum of this. How are you, Richard?
I'm doing amazing, and I love this topic, and I hate bullies. So I just want everybody to know I can't stand a bully.
We've got Ashley that wants to stay silent, but how are you, Ashley? You okay? If you want to put it in the comments, go for it. And while we wait for her, we've got, I'm begging you right now, please don't hypnotize any of us. We've got Kevin Lepine. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm just a little bit worried. You said this is a trigger warning and then immediately introduced Nick. So what's so bad with Nick right now?
Well, no, he's a good guy. He's a good guy.
Perfect.
He's a good guy. Everyone on here is good. And we've also got my wife in the comments. How are you, Karen?
Wonderful.
So yeah, everyone share this, please. So I think before we dive into this topic, Kevin, give us a little bit of insight in who you are, what you do, and how you're getting by today.
So I have the longest running hypnosis show in Las Vegas. It's Hypnosis Unleashed. And I get the joy of being able to get volunteers from the audience, hypnotize them, and really turn them into superstars. I mean, we'll talk a lot about my background. When I was a kid, I was bullied and abused a lot. I actually had a severe stuttering problem until I was about 15 and a half. And we'll talk about the things that I did to get out of being bullied. But it's also kind of funny because doing a hypnosis show, a lot of people are like, oh, well, you're going to hypnotize people and make them do, all these horrible things. Well, no, that's not my goal. With Hypnosis Unleashed, I've been in Vegas for 15 years. My goal is, if you volunteer, I want to make you look like a superstar. Because if I make you look like a star, everybody has fun with you.
Absolutely, yeah. I think even though she hasn't put it in the comments, I think my wife wants to see me hypnotized, but
everybody wants to see their spouse hypnotized. Everybody also has a list of things they'd like to see their spouse hypnotized to do. So
that's a whole other show, though. We can't.
Whole other show.
Yeah, that's another show. That's another show. Yeah, because I could end up doing anything. Who knows?
It's funny. My rule on stage, and what I've tried to teach other hypnotists when I train them is, if you volunteer at them, everybody in the audience doesn't know who you are. But they know one fact about you they'll never forget, which is, oh my God, that could have been me. So if I make sure you look great, then everybody's like, oh, if I'd have gone up there, I'd have looked great.
Uh-oh. Right, so let's crack on with the show. Right. Which side should we kick off with? The bullying side or the bully themselves?
If we just, for 1 second, let's just start with this. If you're a target of bullies, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
If you're a target of bullies, and thank God, from the time that I was a kid till now, I will say certain things have gotten better because the boys will be boys mentality doesn't exist. But when I was a kid, my bullies couldn't follow me home in my pocket. And that's something a lot of people have to deal with now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. It's easier in some ways to bully people than it was before. We're 24/7 to our phones, and that's made it easier for people to do good things as well as bad things in that sense. So.
And people have a bulletproof keyboard, and they think they can just get away with saying anything. I think there's a lot, especially for kids on social media. There's a lot that parents need to really understand as far as
Yeah,
how is this affecting your kid's mental health.
absolutely. Especially when they're keeping secrets from the parents as well.
Well, that's part of what makes people a target for bullying
Yeah,
is when they feel that they can't tell somebody what's going on.
yeah, yeah,
You know, if we look at it from that, I mean, one of the things that I talk a lot about in my book, where I talk about a lot of the abuse, is what got me out of it was finally being able to build a community around me. When you have a community around you, when you have a community that actually builds you up, someone else can't tear you down. When you're alone, when you're isolated, when you have nowhere else to go, when you feel you have to keep a secret about all of this, it's so easy for somebody to wreck your esteem.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So, what was your experience like when you first? I'm gonna say it, first was targeted by a bully. Like, what
Confusion.
did you notice? Any signs or anything?
Confusion. The majority of my bullying happened in school, and outside of school, with people who could find me. Um, it started with confusion, and it started with not understanding what the kids considered teasing, and not understanding what that meant. So I took it personally. I got hurt by it, and a few people, because they saw that I got hurt, of course, kind of pulled back. But then there's other people who, as soon as they see that blood in the water, it just makes them want to attack more because, if we talk about it from the bullying side, the bully's getting something out of it. They're getting the reaction. They are getting the reaction of the bullied person feeling hurt and scared. They're getting the reaction of the rest of the people around them giving them adulation for making the person feel scared. They're getting that positive reinforcement from others by causing you hurt.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they say bullying. It's all about power and control, isn't it? I mean, to some extent, and I suppose we all want respect, but with bullies, it's more about getting that through fear. Not. I mean, it's different, but getting people to fear them rather than respect them. It's. But,
And
yeah, it's all about power and control, isn't it? And to an extent, any negative relationship involves some element of power and control, doesn't it?
and
Dynamics of.
rarely does a person who is deep into the bullying side of things, rarely do they get positive attention. These usually aren't honor roll students. These usually aren't people who are getting adulations for individual accomplishment. So they don't care that they're getting negative attention. They're just happy that they're getting attention for something.
What I picked up on is, and I did this in previous shows, is the reason people bully is because of something going on in their lives that they don't like.
Yes. Nobody intentionally wants to hurt other people. But hurt people hurt people. It's a great saying, and it's very true. When you're hurt and you're wounded, sometimes the only thing that alleviates that pain very temporarily is hurting someone else. Now, the truth is, what would help is for you to seek help yourself.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I tell people is, if you're being abused at school, find activities outside of school, find activities not associated with your school. Talk to parents, talk to teachers, talk to people. If you're being bullied at home, reach out to anyone outside of the house. don't keep your bullying, don't keep the fact that you're being bullied a secret.
Absolutely. Yeah, Ashley's just put in the chat. She became a bully as a kid because everyone called her different. As a kid, with divorced parents, etc. Plus, she was the new kid that didn't fit into making new friends.
It's interesting because we always associate bullying with, with childhood times, and that is probably where most people experience bullying. But obviously, you can get it, at later in life, in work as one place. And
Oh,
I think I read
yes.
recently that a lot, this survey, a lot of people said that one person who had the most effect on their well-being and mental health was their manager, because in a job, the relationship with a manager, is so important. It's that the manager controls what they do and how they do it. And if they don't have a good manager, then that can affect their directly. So they're saying, that, their well-being at work can be affected by whether they got, relationship with a manager, whether they got a bullying manager or a nice manager. So, and I wonder, if an interesting thing, what do you think, Kevin, whether, people who are bullied, often that, many people who are bullied, at school, do they more likely to end up being bullied at work, or is it are they different, completely different? You can't really.
I think that's very, very true. And also, let's put this out there. For people who are being bullied later in life, it's not uncommon for that person's bully to be their spouse.
Yes.
To be in an abusive relationship, you don't have to be yelled at every day. You don't have to be hit every day. But if the person you're spending your life with every day is just taking those little jabs at you, that takes its toll as well. And for some people, let's look at the bullying mindset. And I hate to say, let's look at that in a positive way, but let's look at that person who only knows how to use aggression to advance. So somebody who uses that aggression in the workforce can get promoted, can get praised, because, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, that loud voice gets seen if they're seen accomplishing. But once they're in that position, they can tear a lot of people down.
Yeah, it does. And that's where I'm going to turn to Richard, because we've not heard from him yet. And I'm going to ask him something that I don't think he's been asked before. I know he's done lots of podcasts, but I'm going to ask something that I don't think he's been asked before. We're obviously fellow addicts, me and you. And we became abusive towards others and ourselves through all this, through drinking, whatever. But what sort of characteristics did you show when you decided it was an acceptable behavior to be a bully towards others, including yourself?
Well, for me, I had the excuse, and I use the word excuse. Well, I was drinking, so I always knew I had that excuse behind me that I can act stupid and act a fool. So I always use that as my excuse. But once I quit using 36 years ago, I no longer had that excuse to being an asshole. So, and I think a lot of people use, addiction as an excuse to be, I hate to use the word, but an asshole, instead of just saying, hey, I'm just an asshole. Because you know what I mean? Because this way you don't have an excuse now, because you can't blame it on the drugs or you can't blame it on the drink. You can just blame it on your attitude.
And I've got 15 years in GA, and I will agree you could take GA, SA, AA, NA, and if you just changed it to Assholes Anonymous, all of us could just be at the same meeting together.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got Jim Short here. Welcome. Hope you're well. We've got Joe Bryan. Obviously, I've just put Kerry's comment up. Police project their own insecurities onto the victims. And Joe Bryan, she was a bully herself and she could not give a shit. And I think that was the insecurities of our, I'm not going to say ego, but it's our negative mindset and maybe our defense mechanism to protect ourselves from harm, but not knowing and unaware that we're actually damaging the people around us with our behavior and choices.
And it's weird because as kids, there's so much you don't know and don't understand. You don't understand as the bully the effect you're having. You don't understand as the target, why this hurt keeps growing and growing and growing. My wife actually does elementary school shows, and in her shows she does something called donkey voice, which is the voice in her head that tells her she can't do things. And so she's found a way to teach kids about negative self-talk and how to change that voice in your own head. I mean, at 15 and a half, and I was ready to kill myself. I was ready to be done with it all. And thank God, instead of doing that, I also kind of decided that I needed to make some changes myself. I'm not going to say that being bullied was my fault, but I had to ask myself, what was I doing that made being bullied so much easier?
Well, I'm glad you said that, Kevin, because obviously I don't believe it now, but for years, for me, when I was being bullied, everyone blamed me for it. That was my fault that I was abused. My fault that my parents got a divorce. My fault I was put on child protection as a minor. But it wasn't. It was
No.
none of my fault. Do I believe I played a factor in it? No. Did I believe at the time? Yes. But now it's not, because it's all about manipulating your mindset in a good way rather than the shit way to get the best sort of outcome that you want for you.
When I looked at myself, I had to realize that all the pain that I had gotten from being bullied and abused, it gave me a stuttering problem. When I could talk, I would say something so mean because I knew what was about to come in my direction. And I was isolated. I didn't have friends. I didn't have a community. I didn't have anywhere around me that I felt safe. And because I never felt safe, I kept projecting that. I don't want to say I was projecting that I was a victim. I will say that I was projecting I was vulnerable. How about that? And projecting those vulnerabilities, especially around kids, makes yourself a target.
It's interesting because when I was young as a teenager, my first father left and my second father died of cancer, and I was really quite quiet anyway, so I went quite depressed as a teenager, and I found life hard, but when I got bullied at school it made it unbearable, and I really struggled with my mental health when I was a teenager. And then when I went on to work in my 20s, I ended up being bullied at work, and I think I fell into that thing of, I think to an extent I did get to that point where I thought that it wasn't my fault when I was being bullied, but at the same time, I had to do something myself to change it, because I experienced it at school when I was going to work and experiencing similar thing. And with the bullying, it was sort of reinforcing this, I think, self-prophecy, my own mind, that, well, I must be sort of worthless or something to be bullied. The messages I was receiving. So I had to do something, to disprove, in my own mind, prove the bullies weren't right in that way. Otherwise, I felt, it'd just be, unless I did something to prove my own mind, then the bullies be right from school through to work and they carry on. Let's break the cycle. But I think it's an interesting point about, the victim thing, because you can, it doesn't mean if you're, a target or victim, it's not your fault if you're being bullied, but obviously to an extent, what can you do to break that cycle of being bullied?
And self-esteem is kind of a muscle. Like if you're not building your self-esteem, and if you don't have areas that build your self-esteem and make you feel good about yourself, it's very easy to fall into that. And that's for kids and adults. If we feel pain, if we don't feel that we're good enough, it really does send a message out there.
Yeah, and obviously, again, I want to pick on Richard because obviously I know he's going to be going shortly. And I want to pick on the military a little bit because obviously I know you served. I know bullying has been going on in the military for decades. For example, the first 2 World Wars, if you showed any sort of vulnerability, you were shot dead on the spot, no ifs, no buts. What was life like in the military surrounding bullying in your experience?
Well, I mean, there's a difference between bullying, there's a difference between hazing, and there's a difference between they call making your bones. I'm from Jersey, so I'm sure that me and my boy there we know what making our bones means. In the military, they break you down in order to build you back up again. And it's only the weak person that will keep on bullying somebody. So it's really not seen much. And now they're doing a much better job because the suicide rates are so high that they're getting rid of people like that. But I really didn't see it that much in the military because I knew it was a mind game. They were just breaking me down to build me back up again. So once you realize that the military was just a big mind game, then you really didn't have much problem with it.
Well,
there's a saying that I heard. Talk about making your bones. If the only way that you can make your bones is breaking someone else's, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
But you can make your bones without hurting anyone. You can make your bones and make yourself strong without causing others pain.
Absolutely.
I can remember the moment. Well, because I was abused as a child growing up in Jersey. I got beat up every day for like the first 12 years of my life. I got beat up every day until one day I snapped. I picked up my bike and I beat the guys with my bike and put them in hospitals, and they never bullied me again. So I think eventually you have to say enough is enough. I'm not going to be bullied anymore. I'm enough, and you're not going to treat me this way because I don't deserve to be treated this way. And sometimes you have to cut people out of your life that are bullying you, even as an adult.
Can I ask you a question about AA for a second?
Sure.
Is it to Richard or me?
Either. Both.
Okay. All right.
So you've gone through bullying as a kid.
Yeah.
Did you notice that it also gave you empathy for other people? It made you feel the pain of other people around you, which is also something that causes us to numb ourselves, which is when we can feel the pain of others so much.
Yep.
Sometimes we need to drown that out too.
Yep. Well, I tell everybody, if I was going to be a superhero, I would be Empathy Man. I just actually wrote an article about soft skills and empathy yesterday on LinkedIn. But,
Nice.
For me, I believe that once you could feel what other people feel is when the bullying really stops, because you can think back and be like, I used to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy because I know how that guy felt.
So Richard, I mean, do you think? I mean, obviously, there's no There's no positive about experiencing bullying, say. But do you think going through your experiences has helped you in a way as a coach? Help be have better empathy with the people you talk to in sport. And but by experience, these negative experiences helped you be a better coach because you can support
I mean,
better.
even like when I was working with Triple H and The Undertaker, I would be empathetic, but I wouldn't be sympathetic. I'd be like, okay, Mark, Paul, I know how you feel, but I don't care how you feel. You need to start recovering from your injuries. So I believe that there's a difference between empathy and sympathy. And I think to be a great coach, you have to know the difference.
Yeah.
And I think
Absolutely.
that empathy also lets us see the invisible people so much clearer.
Yeah.
The people who are hiding in the corner stand out to us.
I think with my experience, being bullied, I took it personally at first, and obviously I was similar to Richard. The only way for it to stop was to be violent, to respond in a violent way, and it did stop for a while, but obviously it just replaces to the fact that I just wanted to abuse myself then and bully myself, and that was with the drink. And yeah, it turned me into a bully for a while, absolutely. But now empathy. I now notice the signs of when someone is mistreating others, and that's what we need to look out for. Obviously, the saying, isn't it? The quiet ones you have to be more cautious about rather than the ones that actually want to do the damage.
Yep. Yeah, I
And
agree.
and unfortunately, when you're in that position, when you're bullied, and you finally snap and you take out your bully by any means necessary, that fight or flight really kicks in.
Yeah.
Well, also when you're a kid, if this is happening at school, now you're tagged as the psycho. And once again, that just forces you into isolation, which creates more negative behavior.
I suppose it's to get to that point. We all have that tipping point, wherever it is. We all have a point where we say enough's enough. But to stop bullying, we have to in some way say, this is unacceptable. I'm not going to accept this anymore. But if we don't do that early enough, then we're more likely to have extreme reaction. And that's the thing. How having the courage and the skills to say enough's, this isn't acceptable.
Yeah.
It's the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing, isn't it? The hardest thing in the world to do it, but
yeah.
And
I just say that sympathy. Sorry, just say that sympathy for empathy. I think it's that we said earlier. I think not many people do actually want sympathy in the way that sympathy, I think, doesn't really. It's nice if it's from a good place that people are caring to sympathy, but it doesn't actually really change anything. But empathy is where people genuinely understand. In an authentic way what you're going through. And I think not many people, sympathy doesn't really, it's nice, but it doesn't really help or change anything. But empathy is such a powerful thing. It's where people genuinely, understand and know what you're going through. So I think there is a difference there.
When I was a preteen, especially, so like junior high, if somebody was sympathetic to me being bullied, I hated their guts. Because their sympathy made me feel that they were looking down on me too.
Yeah.
I can't say I met anybody who was empathetic to me at that time in my life. And yeah, being sympathetic was degrading almost to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I got very fortunate. My parents knew something was wrong. They didn't realize the extent of it. They didn't understand that I was also being abused by faculty. But they did let me transfer schools when I was in 10th grade. And I went to public schools for the first time. And it was funny, the night that I was going to kill myself, I ended up just praying and making a list. And it's kind of funny because you're talking about a 15 and a half year old kid. I had no idea what a fourth step was. Okay. But I ended up making a list of everything I hated about myself, which was a really long list. I made a list of things that I liked about myself, which was a really short list. And I made a list of things I wished I could be. And for the first night, thank God, it was like, I slept after that. And when I went to public schools, I actually made friends. Now, I made friends with the misfits, the burnouts, the punks. Those were my friends. And I will tell you that here's how you know you have the right community. I had a stuttering problem. And you're talking about now 14, 15, 16-year-old kids, or to put it another way, assholes. They let me do this. They let me tap out every syllable until I could talk. And how a group of kids at that age had the ability to give me that space is a miracle. But also it's because, like I said, I kind of fell in with the wounded warriors, more or less. And because all of us were wounded in some way, shape, or form, we all gave each other space to heal from certain things. And I think we all made one giant mistake as well. I think because we were the misfits, we didn't understand that the quote-unquote popular kids were going through the exact same problems we had.
I guess we all need our tribe, don't we? And whether you're the geeks, the misfits, or the sports people, we all need our tribe, and each tribe is in a tribe because they get the support from people in the peer. And it's all, I think that's the thing. We all need to find our tribe, and there is no right tribe. It's a tribe that fits you. People who have those points of similarity, those things in common.
And you know what? So being a mindset coach, I've come up with a theory, and I've got a question for you on this one. Everybody's going to tease each other, but I've kind of come up with this mathematical formula, which I've told people, which is if for every time they tease you, if they're not building you up twice as much, you're on the wrong place.
Have you noticed, and I'm going to pick on a next week's show a little bit here, when going back to the tribe business, have you noticed we tend to have our boundaries up and be somebody we're not really true, like we're not being true to ourselves, not being that reality person, and we're trying to fit into the community, and when we're being bullied, we tend to attract the wrong communities first. The wrong ones, the toxic ones, who we think are the right ones at first, until they start pretending, oh, yeah, we're here for you. And then they stab you in the back because you can't be bothered to do what you're told.
Yeah, my big question is the tribe you're currently in, are they building you up more than they're tearing you down? And if that tribe isn't building you up, you need to find another one.
And that's same in relationships as well. Is you can't be with someone who's going to kick you down when you're already down. You need to be with a partner that's going to help lift you back up, vice versa.
Well, I often think,
Richard, congratulations on 30 plus years in AA. Congratulations on that, sir.
Kevin, I would love to get together offline and have you come on the show. And
anytime. I would love to. Just go to Hypnosis Unleashed, email me through there. I would love to join you. I've actually got to work with some great pro wrestlers as well. They're a fun community.
Jealous.
All right, guys. I love you guys.
Yeah, I'll see you next week, Richard.
Okay, Richard. Good to see you.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm jealous, Kevin.
For a little while, I actually started a pro wrestling fantasy camp. So like you got to get in the ring with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and have like a not like a modern style match, but like that 1980s kind of match. Yeah.
I remember those. Kevin, I was wondering, talk about your hypnosis, whether obviously, I think that's everything we do is shaped by experiences to an extent. But was your hypnosis, because hypnosis is about obviously you're having an effect, a control over others. I mean, in a positive way. But was that partly why you chose going the hypnosis route? Because I guess we're bullied, we're being affected by the behaviour of others. But is hypnosis a positive way that you could be the one affecting other people's behavior in a positive way. You could be, I don't know, why did you choose, what prompted you to go on hypnosis? It's quite an unusual.
Nobody ever gets into the mental health field unless they want to fix themselves.
Yes.
Let's just call that out right there.
Sure.
Everybody who gets into any version of mental health, one of the first things they really want to fix is themselves. And learning what I learned about hypnosis and growing in hypnosis, the way you can use hypnosis to change your mindset is so important. And even though I do a comedy show with it, I'm also putting in a lot of positive messages. One thing that I mentioned towards the end of the show as I'm waking everybody up is I leave them with a positive suggestion while also telling them, if you could come up from the audience, live through the number one fear in the world, which is, getting in front of a group of strangers, and do everything you've done up here tonight, and you can achieve anything you put your mind to. And with hypnosis, one of the ways I love to explain what hypnosis does is it helps you change your point of view. The greatest way to explain how your mind works is on the count of 3, whatever you do, don't think of a pink elephant. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, you have no choice. That elephant just jumps in. But if I say on the count of 3, think of something you like more than elephants, you could think of anything. And so it's not don't think of something. As soon as you try to not think of something, that's all you think about and focus on.
Yeah.
Sure.
But if instead, and I talk about this a lot with anxiety, because 2 things you can't feel together are anxiety and gratitude. And with anxiety, you rarely go from 1 to a 10. So 1 to a 2,
Like that.
3, 4, 5, and so with hypnosis, what's great is when you feel yourself getting into that 3 or 4, it's not, I'm not going to think of the anxiety. It's, I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to think of things I'm grateful for. I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to think of the things in life that build me up, which is also a grounding technique. It puts you in the present. And it really helps lessen the anxiety. So yeah, I think it's very, very much what drew me into it wasn't can I control your mind? It was, can I control my own?
Sure. Interesting.
Have you ever hypnotized a bully?
No, because that was 2 different time periods in my life.
Okay.
But having said that, I've used a lot of hypnotic technique, a lot of conversational psychology to change people's mindsets, to make people realize, I know you thought you were making a joke there, but you kind of did this, so hey, let's go do this behavior instead. Not I'm blaming you for what you did, but I'm just saying, hey, let's go do this activity instead, and let's not take that last thing you did forward.
Interesting.
It's all about forgiveness, isn't it?
If you don't create the ability for reconciliation, this being in the program,
Yes.
if you can't forgive, you can't be forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, have I forgiven my bullies? Yes, but And the but is, at this point, my bullies are damn near imaginary. My
Okay.
bullies are people I haven't seen in 30 plus years. So do I need to forgive somebody I'm never going to see again? Yeah. Yeah, I do. Because I can't let my anger for them affect my relationships today. And I don't care if they ever know it. Because forgiving people from your past has nothing to do with them and everything to do with you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I guess it's like that principle of, we don't want to forgive people who've done bad things to us, but if we don't forgive, then they've won because they're all that is always with us. What's happened to us, that experience. So, they've something that happened 20, 30, 40 years ago, but if we haven't forgiven them in some extent, then they've.
And
But
I don't know.
it starts with forgiving yourself, though.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Being able to look at yourself and go, when I look at all the abuse I went through, I have to go, I was a kid. I was a child. A child should have never been in this position. The people who were protecting me were hurting me. That was not my fault. I had no defense against that. And I would love to be able to subscribe to forgive and forget,
Okay.
but we don't forget. But we can continually forgive. We can continually forgive ourselves. And forgiveness doesn't mean I forgive you, come back into my life and give me hell again. Forgiveness can mean I forgive you for what you did, but I'm also leaving you in this place and I'm not carrying you forward.
Absolutely. Like Ashley's put, forgiveness is never for them, but for us.
Yes.
And believe this or not, one of my bullies is my own mother.
Mm-hmm.
Is my own mother, because obviously she got me drinking from a very young age, and I stopped talking to her for a good solid 6 years, well, over 6 years. And last year when she approached me, I still had all this resentment, all this anger. She tried giving me a hug, and I pushed her away. I
Mm-hmm.
pushed her away because I still had all this hatred towards her. But now I've made peace. And now we talk every single day. And it's a different sort of relationship than what it was once.
I suppose you are more in by being in the position you are now, and that you are actually more in control of
In
relationship.
control, yes, in control.
You are the one in a bit more sort of power in a positive way, because you're not you can decide. In some ways, you're deciding the relationship that you have and
Yes.
how you define that. So it's more power to you,
And
isn't it?
and I think this is something that doesn't ever get talked about,
No.
is confusion.
Mm-hmm.
When you are bullied at home, when you're bullied by the person who you are told by everything in the universe, this person's supposed to protect you. Well, this person's bringing me pain. You walk around in this like fugue state, this confused state, because you can't find solid ground anywhere. And I don't think we ever address the confusion, and being able to tell a child, oh yeah, your confusion, you're 100% right. You should be very confused. Here, let me help you find solid ground.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult, because when you're confused about that relationship at home, nothing else in the world makes sense.
It doesn't. And I think, now thinking about it, that was one of the factors that made me attempt suicide in 2019.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
2019.
I The two things that stopped me from killing myself, if I'm going to be very honest, was I did have a couple of people that I cared about. But the reality was, I thought I was so big of a screw up. I was afraid of trying to kill myself and screwing that up too and being a vegetable. That
Okay.
was my number one fear that stopped me. I wasn't afraid of death. I was afraid that people had told me I was a screw up for so long, I was afraid I wouldn't even be able to do that correctly.
Mhm. Okay. Going off that, and obviously the title as well, I was bullied for many years as well, up until adulthood. And when I attempted suicide in 2019, I didn't want to die. I didn't. But the only thing that was on my mind was death. Death. I don't know why I'm still here. Well, I've got a family, beautiful family. I've got kids, got a wife, got friends, but I still don't know why I survived. I still don't know that today.
So let me ask you this question. Did you want to die at that moment, or did you just not want to be alive? Which is a weird question, but I think you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I didn't want to die.
Yeah. It's not that you wanted to die, you just didn't want to keep living the life you were living.
Yeah,
I guess, yeah, it's along those lines of, I can't see a way making things better. So,
Hmm.
with a similar sort of time period to Adam, I'd been made redundant, and then I ended up splitting my ex, and who moved my son to Wales, and then I was homeless. And so I had this point where and then I went to a family member in the south coast of England, and the son, who's only 13 years old, threw himself off a cliff, and he had my steps into a section. The police were there, and I thought, it was just one thing after another, and I thought it couldn't. Every time I thought it couldn't get worse, it got worse, and I thought, I've lost everything. I've lost, I've got no money. I've lost my wife, my kid. I mean, everything else. And I think that's the thing is, I couldn't see a way of getting it better. So yeah, I didn't. Similar. I didn't want to die at all, but I couldn't see a way to making things better.
Yeah.
And that was to me. It was like, well, what else could I didn't have any choice for living because I thought, if I've lost everything, and I'm still things are getting worse. And I think that's like, so that's what. Yeah. So I totally identify what you're saying, Kevin. It wasn't that I wanted to end my life, but I felt I had no choice in the sense I couldn't see the way to live at that point.
And for those of you watching, if you are having thoughts of suicide, reach out to anyone. Reach out to everybody you can. Please
yeah,
reach out. Let people know. Um, I did talk to somebody I respected once, and he was much older than I was. At the time, I was probably in my early 20s. He was in his late 40s. And what he told me, and I love this thought, and I do want to share this. He said at 14, I was going to kill myself. He said I had everything in front of me. I was all ready to do it. He said, then I had the weirdest thought, the weirdest God given miracle. And the thought was this: okay, I'm dead. I died. Now every day after this is a gift. That person that wanted to die, okay, he died. Now who do I want to be moving forward? Which for a 14-year-old is a really deep thought.
Mm.
But sometimes you don't have to kill yourself. You never have to kill yourself.
no,
But you can leave a situation. You can decide this situation is over and this is how I'm going to live my life from now on. That is 100% your choice to make. And please, instead of killing yourself, just decide that you're not going to carry negativity forward.
yeah.
Find
We,
a community. My book, you can't really see it clearly, but the
oh,
picture
I
of it,
can.
yep, it's a whole bunch of fish all grouped together to look like a shark to chase a shark away. And as soon as I saw that picture, I like bought the rights to that because I'm like, that's it. That's my story. The second I had a community, one person couldn't abuse me, couldn't bully me because my self-esteem was rooted in something else now.
Yeah.
And I promise you, if you are watching this, you are great at something. And maybe you haven't found it yet. But I promise you, you are great at something. And there's a community that can't wait for you to join them.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just searching your book. There you go. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
I
I live an impossible dream. And I live that because I was able to build a community around me. I was able to forgive. I was able to confront the things in myself. And I promise you, if you're being bullied, there are communities out there who will help you.
Yeah.
And the great thing is, I also think once we've been bullied, once we find good communities, we learn how to not find negative communities anymore.
Mm-hmm. But even then, having the odd negative can actually be a positive.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're all positive, what sort of life is that? What sort of world are we?
Oh yeah. Oh, it's never always going to be sunshine and roses.
But also, I guess, our shared experiences in some ways can be what can sometimes be what create, is part of our tribal community, or what links us together. People, we make friendships. It's our shared experiences partly. So, positive or negative, our experiences are who we are. And if we have a shared experience with someone, that brings you closer. So yeah, the negative things, can help
And
you.
also, it's a cliche, but you also have to give yourself certain permission. It's okay to not be okay. It's
But
okay
it's not
to go,
okay
I'm
to stay
hurting.
not okay.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
My friends, when I look at the community of friends I was able to build, like one of the mottos we all had was, you can bitch about anything you want for one day. And then either you leave it in the past or we all work together and we change it in the future. What do you want to do about it?
I need to
And
practice
having
that.
that community around me really allowed me to accomplish a lot. Because if you want to complain, all you're doing is staying right where you are. If you want to complain and leave something behind, that's great, leave it behind. If you want to complain and fix something, you don't have to do it alone.
Interesting.
Well, I think being in AA and being in any recovery program, that's a lot of it as well is, yeah, you're allowed to share here. You're allowed to share in the meeting. You're allowed to do this.
Yeah.
But you're not allowed to wallow in it.
No.
So whatever
We're
you
all
do,
going to listen so you can grow.
as long as whatever you do help you move forward, then it's a positive thing. But if you're doing something that's keeping you stuck in the past, then that's obviously holding you back.
Exactly.
And it's funny. I just went through this with a family member not too long ago, who they couldn't see anything positive in their life. And once they got through that moment, which took a lot, the fact that they wanted to build a community now, and the community that they built for themselves. This is somebody who's older than me, who now almost feels younger than me because I've like watched them build this community and everything else. And it's like they get this whole other lease on life. They get this whole other world that they get to live in now. And I'm so happy for them.
That's good.
It does get better. And you
It does.
don't have to do it alone. You don't have to do it alone. You do not have to do it alone. Yes, people are bullying you online. And I'm sorry that's happening to you. But you can find communities online as well who will help build you up.
And that's another message we need to put across is if you're being bullied and you're laughing about that, which you're not letting it impact you, don't look at bettering them. Always look at bettering yourself.
Yes.
Yes.
You can't change another person's behavior.
Nope.
You can change how you deal with it. And strangely enough, I have known a lot of bullies who tried to bully someone, tried to bully someone, tried to bully someone. They were never able to bully this person because this person's attitude just did not let them get bullied. Until the bully finally went, well, Jesus, what is this person doing? I want to do that instead.
Yeah.
And I've known a few people who changed their own bullying mindset because they went, I'd rather be happy like this person.
I like it.
Yeah.
I think there's also that thing of, whatever you're going through, there's someone else who's been through that before. Whatever you're into life, someone else is into that. There's nothing that there's nothing new experience wise that someone hasn't been through it. I think that's the whole thing of connections and forming your tribe. That sometimes when we go through a negative experience, we think we're the only one, or we're alone, and it's people understand. But there's whatever you're going through in life, there are always other people. It's just finding those people, isn't it? But that's part of a tribe thing. But there's always other people who have somewhere been through what you are.
And one of those things about being in those right tribes, especially like when we talk about recovery programs, is you walk into a recovery program knowing you're the absolute worst, and you tell your story, and it's this heart-wrenching story, and everybody else is laughing. And they're not laughing at you. They're laughing because, oh, yeah, that. Oh, God, you did that once. I did that like 9 times before I realized it was stupid. Yeah. And it's a great feeling when you realize, yeah, you're not alone.
Exactly.
That's a good story. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I've heard that similar thing where if you think, I've been through something 10 times, there'll be someone who's been through 11. There will be. There's always someone. That's the thing.
Yeah, and everybody's version of pain is different, but there are people out there who understand. They really do. Yeah. And I know some kid will watch this and go, well, fine, but they understand, but that they're not going to stop these people from bullying me. You're right. They're not going to stop these people from bullying you. But there are ways to make sure that you're not physically abused. If you're being physically abused, you can reach out to a lot of sources. We understand nowadays that physical abuse is not acceptable. And there are communities out there who will help you build your mental health.
Yeah, I've just come across a quote. William Shakespeare actually said this: "Pain pays the income of each precious thing."
He's a clever guy. That's a clever guy. He understood the human psychology.
So, Kevin, where can people find you?
So I do the show Hypnosis Unleashed 5 nights a week at the Four Queens Hotel in downtown Las Vegas. I grew up in Detroit. I tell people I'm living a dream within a dream within a dream within a dream, because the dream was to be a performer, and then to be a professional performer, then to be a full-time performer, then to tour the country, and then to tour the world, and then to be able to do a show in Vegas, and now to have the longest running comedy hypnosis show in Vegas. And what makes it even better is I get to do it with my wife. She is part of the show as well. Nice. And I know we're kind of getting into wrap up, so it's hard for me to say this, but it was moving to Vegas that brought my gambling problem to the forefront. And that's where I went into GA to get help with some other stuff. And had I not sought the help of GA, I would have never been able to achieve the things I have now. I would have never been able to have the wife that I have and the life that I have. So also, if you think there's something in your life that is spinning you out of control, you're not alone. Exactly. Go get some help.
So, thanks, Kevin, for
My
coming
greatest
on.
pleasure.
Please do come back in future.
It'll be
Please
my
do.
pleasure. Anytime you want me, I'll be glad to jump in.
Absolutely.
I'd love to get you on my show as well, Kevin. I'll message
Yes,
you.
please.
for a show
Reach
as well.
out. I'd be glad to do it. If every podcast just helps one person, then we're doing something great.
Yeah, well, I know we had quite a few people tuned in. So people that are tuned in now, have we helped you? Please put in the comments. And then we'll go
And
for that. But
if you're feeling, you know what? If you're feeling bad, I can't promise you I can make you feel good. But if you go to vegashypnosisshow.com/VIP bundle, there's a 20-minute version of a self-confidence relaxation MP3 I have on there. Take it as my gift to you.
there you go. There you go. If you want to put it in the link in the comments, go for it. Obviously, I know we're on Facebook anyway, so there you go.
Yep.
Right. So next week we are same time next week. We're talking about masking mental health. So it's time to get people talking about the vulnerabilities. I know Nick's skiving, Ashley's skiving, Richard's back, I'm back, and we've got another guest. So please share this, everyone. Please share. Please subscribe if you haven't already. We need to get these subscribers up. And yeah, we'll see what happens.
Spread love.
Definitely.
Spread love.
Yeah. Anyway.
So
it's great to meet you, Kevin.
It's my greatest pleasure. Thank you,
Good
guys.
to meet you.
Right. See you later, guys.
Cheers. See you in a couple of weeks.